But who better than me?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the end of year awards. Now please like, subscribe and share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It is appreciated. Now this one is the male performance of the year 2023. Now I don't usually do this, but I do want to give a honorable mention to a fight which just about missed out on this list, and that is Leigh Wood for his performance against Mauricio Lara in the rematch. Bit of history behind it. Obviously the first fight, Leigh Wood was considered a slight underdog, boxing very well, gets caught with a vicious left hook which drops him. He's a little unsteady on his legs. Ben Davison throws in the towel 6 seconds before the end of the 7th round. I think it was the 6th or the 7th. But he basically he initiated the rematch for 3 months after, because this fight took place in February. The rematch happened in May, and you know, again, people thought, well, you just got knocked out, you haven't even had enough time to rest. Boom. How are you going to get through this one? Not only did he box a perfect fight, extremely disciplined, a lot more disciplined than he's been in several others, but he even ended up dropping Mauricio Lara, and he ended up winning a 12-round unanimous dominant performance. And yeah, it was great to watch. But yeah, it just about missed out on my list, primarily because obviously Mauricio Lara, he did kind of catch Lara in the throes of winning that title, and Lara basically missed the weight, which meant that he couldn't have defended his belt in the first place. They wouldn't let him come in under a certain weight, so he did come into the ring overweight, and also it looked a little bit sluggish in there, but that didn't deter from the fact that he had everything it took to destroy Leigh Wood for a second time, but Leigh Wood ripped up the script. So I just wanted to throw that one out there. Now, without further ado, let's get into the top 5. At number 5, male performance of the year 2023, my number 5 pick goes to O'Shaquie Foster for his performance and KO victory over Eduardo Rocky Hernandez. This fight, I believe it was in October that this fight took place. It might have been late September, but it was either September or October. Now the significance of this fight and why I think it was such a great fight: O'Shaquie Foster was walking into the Lions Den. He was a promotionally free agent, so didn't have a broadcast, didn't have a promoter to basically fight his corner, which meant he was ultimately having to acquiesce to the demands of Matchroom and Eddie Hearn, who had won the purse bid. So he wins the purse bid. He decides that this fight is going to take place in Mexico, in Rocky Hernandez's, I think either his hometown or his home state. It may not have been exactly where he was from, but it was going to be a very partisan crowd. Not only that, it was also in a pretty small ring as well. And you know, for someone like O'Shaquie Foster, who was more of a pure boxer by trade, who likes to be able to move, that meant that was going to hamper his abilities within there. However, O'Shaquie did you know, manage to sort of get on his bike, move about a bit in those first few rounds, but he was winning a lot of them via the jab. There was a lot of pressure from Rocky Hernandez. He had to weather that, but he's, you know, slowly busted up Hernandez throughout the rounds, to the point in the later rounds, the two of them, you know, he just started holding his feet. He hurt Hernandez a couple times. I think in the 9th round, I think he dropped him in the 9th, and as a result of that, in the 10th round, they basically, what I think a lot of people have now described as round of the year for 2023, and I definitely wouldn't argue. It was a back and forth round where, you know, O'Shaquie Foster basically was just putting a beating on Rocky Hernandez on the ropes, but then Rocky Hernandez comes back with a big overhand left, I think, which catches O'Shaquie Foster and makes him back up into the ropes. And Hernandez basically goes after him, and he just tees off on O'Shaquie Foster for a period of time. Foster's obviously sort of countering as well, but he's having to eat several shots at that moment as well. It's just a very, very action-packed round all the way up until in the 12th, where Rocky Hernandez just can't survive more of the beating. He goes down again once in the 12th, manages to get up, but then gets taken out, and the ref waves it off towards, I think it was the middle part of the 12th round. There wasn't a shoot, there was maybe a minute and a bit left to go, I think. But yeah, on an away promotion, on away soil, in the line, then very partisan crowd, O'Shaquie Foster deserves his plaudits. So for me, that's my number 5 male performance of the year for 2023. Now this next one, I was wrestling with whether this should actually be a little bit higher, but ultimately I think the ones that are above it are just a bit better in overall quality, and there was a history behind those performances. So this one makes it in at number 4, but that's nothing to be sneezed at. It's still a great one. So my number 4 pick for male performance of the year 2023 goes to Rafael Espinoza for his shock upset victory against Robeisy Ramirez, which I believe took place back in November, the early parts of November this year. Now, the reason this is the performance of the year, you have Rafael Espinoza, who at the time was the number 12 ranked guy in the rank standings for, I think it was the WBO. So he wasn't expected to do anything. He was supposed to just be a showcase against Robeisy Ramirez. But what he showed was he's got, number 1, an incredible work rate, incredible heart, and the determination to see through a crisis. In the first 4 rounds, he pretty much was dominating a lot of the action. Robeisy was being a lot more accurate with his work, but he was just working a lot more, trying to sort of break Robeisy Ramirez down. Ramirez, who's about 5'6", I believe, 5'6.5", and Espinoza was about 6'1", so there was a very distinct height differential, but obviously he had a much smaller frame as for to take place within that height, so it kind of balanced itself out. However, in the 5th round, he got caught trying to transition between stances, and he took a very, very big overhand right from Robeisy Ramirez, which, you know, basically folded him down onto the ground. I think he even hurt his right leg on the way down because it kind of bent underneath him. He gets up as the ref's counting, he jumps up really quick and stumbles and falls back into the ropes, but the ref still counts and allows him to sort of, because normally a ref might wave it off, this ref didn't. He carried on, he got up again, and then he said, "You still want to fight?" He said, "Yes, come to me." He managed to see out the end of that round. He came back in the next few, and he had to come through a crisis. He was still hurt. He was still trying to work and pressure, but Ramirez was still finding good shots. Again, he took another big shot in the 7th round, and he was wobbled again then. But he kept coming forward, he kept grinding, he kept chipping away, he kept working away at Robeisy Ramirez all the way until rounds 10 and 11. He now starts to outland and outpunch and outwork Robeisy, and he's holding on, trying to just survive at this point. And then in the 12th round, he really steps on the gas. He throws every ounce of heart, blood, sweat and tears he's got into the round, to the point where I think it was about 18 seconds before the end of the round, Robeisy Ramirez capitulates under the pressure and goes down. He makes the count to get back up, survives the rest of the round, but then ends up losing his belt on a majority decision to Rafael Espinoza. And to me, it was a great performance because he showed everything. He showed work rate, he showed will, he showed heart, he showed grit, and he also showed good punch placement and good boxing skills. So for that reason, I have to give Rafael my number 4th spot for the Male Performance of the Year 2023. My number 3 spot for Male Performance of the Year 2023 goes to none other than Naoya Inoue for his performance over Stephen Fulton, which took place back in July. Now, some people might say this performance could have been higher, and there was a chance it could have. This was Naoya Inoue's very first fight going into the super bantamweight division. A lot of people, especially in America, said, well, how is he going to be able to, to deal with the guys that now are coming up much bigger, bearing in mind that Inoue started his career at 108 pounds. This was his 4th weight class. It's the 5th weight class up, but the 4th weight class he's competed in. He just came from being undisputed at bantamweight, no tune-ups, went straight for a unified champ who was considered the best guy in the division at that time. Now, it was virtually a punch perfect performance. It was a very dominant performance. The only reason it didn't end up going a little bit higher in the rank standings is because he did lose a couple of rounds in there when Stephen Fulton made some slight adjustments in the ring, showing obviously his pedigree and his sort of his abilities in there, which then did Inoue, there was an argument to say he lost maybe 2 rounds in there, even though the rest of them was very dominant, and Stephen was the naturally bigger guy, but Inoue basically just broke him down, out jabbed him, sort of outlanded him, and ultimately took him out viciously with a leaping left hook which floored him. And then as Stephen gets back up, he just tees off on him in the corner. Stephen goes back down again, the referee waves it off, and he gets his first 2 belts on his undisputed run within super bantamweight, to whereby obviously he then won the belts just the other day to become undisputed, the first guy to do it as quickly as that in the 4-belt era, and this was the start of it. So just due to the significance of the moment, that is the reason he is my number 3 pick. And in at number 2 for my performance of the year, Male Performance of the Year 2023, goes to Devin the Dream Haney for his performance over Regis Prograis, which took place on the 9th of December earlier on this month. Now, what can I say about this performance? Look, at the end of the day, this was Devin Haney's first fight, jumping up from 135 pounds to 140 pounds, brand new weight class. Didn't take any necessary tune-ups, no feeling out fights to see how he would cope at the weight, see what he was like at the weight. He went straight for who many would consider either the number 1 or the number 2 guy in the division, but it was the easiest belt to be able to negotiate, as Regis was already with Matchroom. Devin's got a very good relationship with Matchroom. Regis was ready and willing to fight, and he arguably was the strongest puncher, or the biggest puncher, at 140, and obviously he's the most proven at that time as well, obviously 2-time 140 champ. But within this fight, Devin showed why it was time for him to have left 135 pounds years ago. He came into the ring very rejuvenated, stronger than we've seen him in a while. Great footwork, great movement, to the point where he didn't lose a single round. Not only that, he was known as being a feather-fisted guy, not being a puncher. He dropped Regis Prograis in the 3rd round off of a very straight right hand. He hurt him very, very badly in the 5th round as well, and also in the 7th. And yeah, he could have pressed the gas to get a stoppage, but he chose just to have an extremely dominant 12-0 performance. There was no round to give Regis in any way, shape or form. You might say that Regis might have been a bit tailor-made for him, because he's not the greatest of movers. He's not great at cutting off the ring. But that being said, Devin still had a job to do. He still had to remain switched on. He did that, and Regis just had no answers. He had no way to combat the movement, the speed, and the newfound power that Devin was able to possess. And you see Regis's face after the fight, he definitely wore the battle scars. It was just a punch perfect performance. The only thing it was missing was a KO. If it had got that, then it definitely would have been my number one, because it was literally punch perfect. But it was a very dominant performance, and it was also an entertaining fight. It wasn't a 12-round stink fest. It was a very entertaining, brutal beating for 12 rounds, and that's why it ends up making my number 2 spot for male performance of the year 2023. And finally, we get to the number 1 spot. And let's be honest, I don't think anyone's gonna be surprised, and I think everyone already knows where I'm going with this. But my number 1 pick for male performance of the year 2023 goes to none other than Terence Bud Crawford for his solo venture into the ring this year against Errol Spence Jr. Now, the reason I have this at number 1 and not Devin Haney's performance, twofold. Because this was the quintessential number 1 versus number 2 in the 147 division. This was for all the belts. It was for undisputed, including the Ring Magazine Championship. And it was also, there was a big narrative about, you know, Errol Spence being just too big for Terence Crawford. He'll just be able to grind him down and wear him down and you know, just bust him up and take him out. I guess the people who thought that haven't really watched a lot of boxing when it comes to the old adage of styles make fights and who's got the better adjustment game in there. But it ended up being a total domination. Now, a lot of people give Errol Spence the first round. However, and even though I did as well, every time I watch it back, there's a big argument for me to say that Terence Crawford won the first round as well. He landed the more effective shots in the first round. Errol just happened to land a few more than Terence did, but every shot that Terence landed hurt and, you know, and rocked and wobbled Spence. That jab, him fighting in southpaw the entire time, was a master stroke, because Errol Spence isn't used to fighting against southpaws. You know, Terence Crawford just took away every single offensive advantage that Errol Spence had. In there, Errol Spence is supposed to be this bigger, stronger guy. Terence Crawford was bullying him on the inside, was pushing him back. I told a lot of people thought that Terence was this small guy. He's an ex-wrestler. He's got crazy core strength for a guy his size. Like, he can lift weight that a guy his size shouldn't really be able to lift. So with all of that, I was never worried about him getting bullied in the ring by Errol Spence Jr. But from the, you know, if you want to say that Errol won the first round, from the second round all the way to when Terence finally stopped him in the 9th, it was just a brutal beatdown. He dropped him in the second round. He then dropped him again in the 7th. I think he dropped him twice in the 7th. Then he lets the 8th round go through. He's still working him over till when he finally just decides to pull the trigger and, you know, hit him with a barrage of brutal punches in the 9th. And the referee, Harvey Dock, one of the best referees in the States, jumps in and calls quits to it. There was a lot of talk to say that his team, the Errol's team, should have pulled him out of that fight a couple rounds earlier, because he wasn't, you know, he had no real chance of winning by that point. But Errol showed a lot of heart and determination, so we have to always give respect for that. But Terence Crawford just showed that he was levels above Errol Spence Jr. and he truly showed that time that he was the pound for pound number 1 guy in the world. And that was the performance that he had been waiting for, the performance that he was denied for almost 6 years. So when it came and he was finally able to show people what they'd been missing since 2018, it was a sight to behold. And for that reason, Terence Crawford is my number 1 male performance of the year 2023. Now with that being said, that concludes this section of the awards. Look out for tomorrow's awards, which will be the male and female fighter of the year. Those ones might get a bit controversial and I might get some heat in the comments, but I'm confident in what I chose and I'm satisfied in my picks. So with that being said, I'm gonna cut this one short. Thank you very much for watching. Leave your comments down below. Let me know if you agree, if you disagree. Tell me who you would have had where, or any that I may have missed out that are worthy of contention. But with that being said, I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.